Hi, welcome to the Community Table, a new podcast hosted by me, Heather Elder of Heather Elder Represents,
and me, Kelly Montez of Apostrophe.
If you've been in the industry for a while, you might remember the original Community Table series I co-hosted with Kate Chase from 2012 to 2017. It was a space for producers, creatives, and industry leaders to gather and talk openly about the work, the challenges, and the changes we were all navigating at the time.
And in 2025, there's no shortage of things to talk about, from AI and evolving client relationships to the way content is being created.
That's why we decided to bring the Community Table back, but this time as a podcast. Kelly and I will co-host, reflecting on the expanding conversations we're having every day with our artists, producers, and creatives shaping what comes next. Whether you're a seasoned producer, a curious creative, or just someone trying to figure out how to thrive in this changing landscape, there's always room at the table.
My name is Jeremy Fox. I'm the executive producer at Accenture Song and Droga 5, as well as a studio manager for Accenture Song.
I'm Cliff Lewis. I'm head of art production at Droga 5.
I'm Dave Stevenson. I'm an executive producer, film at Droga 5.
I'm Caroline Fahey. I'm a senior producer.
Excellent. Thank you. It is official. We are all here. I appreciate that. But Kelly and I talked a lot about what we thought would be a good way to kind of kick this off, especially given the fact that, what's going on in our industry. And so if you want to just take a second and give us a quick answer to if there were one word you would use to describe our industry right now, what would it be? Let's start with you, Jeremy.
Probably transformative.
I would say unpredictable.
I would say hesitant.
Yeah.
I'm going to say interesting.
That is for sure. I think roller coaster would be a really great word. I think sometimes scary, but there's also a, very interesting and exciting part of it. Okay, let's start with you, Cliff, with the next question.
Okay.
It's thinking about your agency's ethos and kind of what are the core values, what guides your work, what's the philosophy behind the decisions that are made or the conversations that are had here, and kind of your creative approach.
I think the fundamental pillar for us is always the work, right? It's always the idea as, the driver, as the most valuable thing. I mean, I think that's propelled Droga 5 since the very beginning. The second pillar for me is execution, right? We put a lot of thought into execution. We put a lot of effort and love into the execution. We do incredible things with all kinds of challenges, with money and budgets and all sorts of craziness. And I think that drives people here. I know also that strategy department would kill me if I didn't mention that, but obviously strategy is an enormous part of what we do in terms of getting to the right brief, into the creatives. And so, it's a strategically solid, ideas-driven, well-executed environment.
Is that your experience, Caroline?
Yeah. There's always an idea around the insight of the idea at Droga.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of thought that goes in well before it gets to the executionary phase, like Cliff was saying, in the strategy department. But I think the execution is a really big focus here.
Dave, you and Jeremy, do you both experience that?
I think the creativity is what leads first and foremost here. I think the execution of that is truly important. I think that, the creative collaboration between all departments and whoever we're working with, whether it be a director, photographer, is the top for Droga 5. And, the work speaks for itself. And I think that we won't compromise on creative.
Yeah, and I think it's also a desire to always try to do something new. And it may not be as grand as a TV spot or a print campaign. It could just be like a little social post or something. So I think that everyone's always pushing to do just that little extra.
How do you think everything is being affected by the current political and kind of economic climate right now?
Well, I think it goes back to my first word, which is hesitation. And people don't know if what we're saying could be misconstrued or viewed by a certain group as incorrect. And, clients are so concerned if it affects their business. So I think there's just, a bit of hesitation.
Yeah, I think economically, I think the things that are happening now politically, I think obviously clients are taking a step back because they can't plan their business. They don't know if they're going to advertise, will they be able to meet, if the advertising is successful, will they be able to meet the demand because of given supply chain issues potential. So there is a lot of uncertainty. It's really just the beginning of that. So we haven't seen it unfold completely yet.
Clients and agencies and people working in this industry are really evaluating what they're doing and what criteria it's meeting, and is DEI important now? Is, what are they looking for in their execution? Clients are concerned about, if they go against the administration or anything like that, that there may be blowback from, people in different markets in different places. We're, based in New York, which is a different, melting pot than other places in America. So we view things differently than you may in Iowa or Kansas. So I think, brands are really looking to us for guidance on how to approach this.
Yeah, which is where we go back to the strategy kind of part of the equation. So our strategists are working very hard, trying to figure out what the messaging is that's important, and how do we communicate all those things that will move the business.
Have they changed or reprioritized their media spend?
I think it depends on the client. And we know that's part of our role as an agency, is to help them work it out. Exactly.
There's so much feedback now that you get from media spends since they're so data driven. Does that affect the creative process for you?
I feel like most of our clients now do like testing before we go into production. That doesn't necessarily align with what is the best story. It's all about these metrics that a testing company and I guess people on the client side have decided that is what's most important of the work. So it definitely at times can dumb down the work, I think, because it just has a different set of criteria than what we're always looking for, which is like, let's just make the best story, the best film, the best print. And that can get skewed because it's, you don't have the product in the first 2 seconds.
For localized out of home, though, I definitely see like the creative being developed based on where those placements are for the spend.
Yeah, it's quite sophisticated actually in terms of where we are now versus where we were a few decades ago. You just do an out-of-home campaign and it would run everywhere. Now it's localized.
You have to take that into account when you're creating the creative.
Yep.
And styling and
Yeah, and the messaging. And sometimes you're actually shooting specifically for a certain thing within a campaign. So there's, the shot list is not just, we're going to do a campaign of 3 images. We can do a campaign of 12 images because each one works differently.
in different markets.
In different markets, so slightly differently, yeah.
So what about other shifts you might have seen, in the difference between creative development or production over the last year?
I think social's become as equal, as important as the sort of big flashy TV spot. It just, I think it's more of just because so many people consume social media, that like the 6-second 9:16 is as scrutinized and as important as the 30-second TV spot. But it's like, why is it so expensive? It's like, well, because it's the exact same creative, essentially. I mean, it might be a different message, but the setting's the same. The talent might be the same.
I mean, we experience that, don't we, Kelly?
Absolutely. I feel like one of my biggest competitors these days is an influencer and how cheaply they can make work and how that has changed clients' expectations. I'm curious, Jeremy, what would you say the rise of the influencer has had on ad agencies?
I think the rise of the influencer has on marketers and agencies had a great influence. I think that, more and more we look to them to partner with them for brands. They have a captive audience. You can, see the numbers a number of eyeballs that they're drawing in. They can do campaigns for a lot less than we can a lot of the time. It's a hit or miss investment sometimes, but it's not, traditionally a large investment in the bigger picture of things. And I think that, clients more and more, these are people that their audiences are listening to and targeting. So they want their voice behind them. But there's a lot of challenges that can come with that. They're not always on target. They're not always, discussing what the client wants to, which is fair. That's what they do. That's who they are.
I think it's a good but different tool to traditional kind of advertising. And I think the production quality, I think they found that when they're overly produced ads for social, they do more poorly than a fully polished ad.
So has all of this kind of changed the idea and the expectations around like speed, scope, and creativity with your clients?
For social, yes. They want it immediately, cheaply, and a lot of it.
Our experience as well.
Yeah.
But I think that's overall. I think that strategy and creative, they want to get so right, and then they limit the time for production, and then they expect it turned around. And, our timelines, traditionally when Dave and I, Cliff probably like started, Carolyn as well, we probably had like, let's say 12, 14, 16 week for certain productions, and production could, guide the timeline. I think that's changed immensely. They buy media behind things and then just want to, get it done as quickly as possible. And that really, it makes things a lot more difficult than it needs to be. So,
But back then it was VHS tapes and no internet.
beta,
Yeah.
3/4 inch. Yeah. Yeah. I think the internet overall and social and everything that's built out, has definitely, changed direction and courses of what we do and how we do it.
Has to be hard to stay inspired. I'm curious, Carolyn, where do you go to be inspired?
Yeah. I mean, I think Instagram is probably the obvious answer. It's just like following people that are doing different, unique things. And I think that's like a big part of our role is like sharing creatives, the work that we see out there in the world. And also like just going to a gallery or a museum for the day and just kind of gaining inspiration from the outside world and bringing that in as a big piece. But there's really so many people making incredible things like for their personal work. And I feel like that's a big draw for me is seeing what someone's doing personally and then like collaborating with them in a work setting and trying to like match like the creative idea at work and then seeing like how you can bring someone's personal ideas into a more commercial setting, I think is a really important piece.
What about you, Dave?
Definitely Instagram. Like I follow a bunch of sort of filmmakers and DPs and photographers, and then movies, of course. Like because there is a crossover between sort of the people making the films that we see and the people making the ads that we see. So it's just when you see a film that a good film that someone's made and they are on a production company's roster, like you have confidence that they'll be able to make something effective and well. So yeah, I think even though movies have been around for a long time, I think they're still a big inspiration.
I think the Instagram algorithm has me dead on. They know what to feed me to keep me on.
Yeah, I'm the same as Jeremy. I think Instagram knows me pretty well, but it's mainly airplanes and pasta, actually.
Mine's all golf and cats.
But I think interestingly, the Droga 5 environment is actually very inspiring in itself, right? Because I think we have the kind of environment here which it is excited by new things and people like to share. We talk about current events, we talk about culture, we talk about a lot of things every day, and we share things that we've seen, we share things that are interesting, which I love, and I think that's healthy, and we'll keep that going.
I totally agree with that because I feel like as a marketer, it's got to be way more effective to have a share of culture than to have a share of voice, right? Like you want to be out there as much as you can, but if you can really come up with something culturally significant and interesting, especially in social, right? That means it's authentic. That means people have bought into it. It's not contrived and overly produced. You're going to make more of an impact. So the more you all can get together and share information and kind of get a pulse on what's going on out there in culture, the more you'll be able to not copy it, but kind of reflect it and evolve it and like push it forward.
Yeah, and hopefully influence it.
And hopefully influence it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So much of what we try to do is create culture and push culture forward. I'm curious what role AI is playing in the creative development process for your teams these days.
It's definitely there. I mean, AI from a, we can't use AI in certain ways because obviously there's still issues with IP. There's still lots of things to consider before we, we're able to do that. But creatives do play with AI. We use the ChatGPT platform and visuals sometimes, just for a proof of concept kind of thing. Just have a look at that. And I'm not quite sure how it plays out in time, but sometimes it's a little bit too good.
Yep. We've seen AI comps be used for proof of concept a couple of times in the past year, and the comps have been incredible and amazing, and it makes the client super excited and buy an idea quite quickly. But the reality is the execution will look very different, and it sets a false reality. Yeah.
Hard to know how that's going to play out. I mean, I have an idea. It's fairly scary. I don't really want to talk about it right now, but
Yeah, I mean, I think it's as everyone's saying, it's a tool. It's not the end all be all, and right now who we are and, as the advertising agency and we need to be protective of our clients and protective of our employees of who, we don't know where they scrape from for all of them. We don't know where they get their data. So there's a lot of IP issues that, are still relevant that we have to be, concerned about. It's still an evolving technology and there has to be a gatekeeper and just a responsible party. And that's who we are and, what we're trying to do.
What about besides creatively? Like, do you ever use AI for like audience identification or analyzing data or, other parts of the creative process before it gets to all of you? Is there other ways that it's being used?
I mean, I know like visual effects companies are using AI for, for deep backgrounds and things like that. I mean, obviously, I don't think it's at a place now, even though there has been some all AI ads, it's not quite advanced enough to create an ad at the same quality as we expect.
It's not a perfect science yet. It may become, but it's really challenging to make a sequential story with that.
Well, and sometimes what people don't realize is, you're not pushing a button with AI and then out comes your ad, right? There are a lot of people who have to have their hands in it.
If Dave and I will stop producing, we'll start writing prompts.
Yeah.
When you can make changes on anyone's whim after the fact, I wonder how much that would slow the process down. I mean, a CMO saying like, oh, I showed this to my wife and kids, and I think you should change X, Y, Z. And with AI, since you're not there on set, you don't have that break of like, it's a 12-hour day, got to wrap. I have to imagine it can extend the life cycle of projects.
Potentially for sure. If you just assume that once it's shot, it's done, you can never go back, there's still a benefit to being able to change it after post-testing. It's like, oh, it didn't perform well because of this scene or that scene. So in that sense, it would be a great tool to have. I mean, clients would love that.
Well, to your point earlier about how testing sometimes doesn't make for the greatest ad,
Yeah.
does that almost give us too much flexibility?
Probably.
Probably.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing I've always loved about advertising is that it isn't really a science, right? There is a scientific component to it. But if it was a science, we would get it right every time, right? And I think that's part of why I love it. And I still love an idea. I still love that brave people, CMOs and agency people decide, no, we love that. We're going to do it. So I'm hopeful, actually, that, we don't go too scientific on advertising and that we still think about the idea and how to craft that in a way that we think is going to, be compelling to people. But I'm an optimist.
I think that might be a good time to kind of get us to talking about like productions and budgets and actual estimates. Can you, Caroline, explain the process of creating a creative brief for your vendors? What does that look like? Who's involved? The team, the client? How much time does that take?
Yeah. So a lot of the time, the things that are in the brief that we share with you guys are from previous decks already made. But then once we go through like the creative piece with you guys, we have like our shot list and the kind of like mood board that we usually share. And that's usually, it takes about like a few days, a week to put together. And then the more like logistical piece of everything, that probably takes me, well, I usually only have about 24 hours to put faster, but I always usually send that after our pre-bid. So anything that is sent to you guys usually always is client approved prior.
Can you explain the pre-bid? Because there probably are people listening who don't understand maybe what the pre-bid is. Yeah.
So once a creative idea is officially approved, we have a pre-bid, which is when we share the photographers or the directors that we want to bid the project with and treat with. And we also share all of the bidding specs with our clients. So the usage, the number of talent, the talent specs, the location, the number of shoot days, and that's all client approved in this pre-bid, so that when we go to you guys and start estimating, the estimate is accurate to all those bid specs and nothing changes.
The pre-bid is everything that we're going to get a number for and that we're going to deliver on. So what the creative is, what directors, what talent, everything that we're going to put together in a number is what we're pre-bidding. I have as many people, meaning my creative team, my account team, sometimes our business affairs. I'll have my clients review everything, for the brief to make sure we're all going out for the one single goal and that everyone is aligned to that. So that's what we're doing when we're putting together the brief to our vendors. This is what we're looking to execute. And then from there, they take that, digest it, and then, photographers or directors or whoever work, animators, illustrators, whatever, come back with a treatment or how they're going to execute it and their costs and their timeline against it. We usually dictate, a lot of that information, meaning budget, a lot of questions. What's your budget? We give that timeline. We have to deliver here for this, sometimes we get a rollout, et cetera. But the pre-bid is just going through all of those nitty gritty details so that there's no question of like, you're buying a house. I always make a little bit of a comparison. It's like, well, where do you want the house? What do you want in the house? How many bedrooms? How big? How this? What square footage? Do you want a pool? Do you not want it? Like those kind of questions. When you're looking for a house or doing a production, the devil is in the details. And when you overlook the little thing, it's definitely the one thing that comes back and bites you in the ass.
The creatives put together these beautiful, we call them director decks, and it's like a pitch deck to the director. So it'll be personalized, usually speak a little about why they like them, like give an example of a piece of work or two. The script, obviously the creative, and then things, any background, like background on the client, background on the campaign, talk about tone, characters, casting, all the things that we think will help sell this work to them. Mm-hmm. It looks all nice. And then production also puts together a production deck, which is kind of all the info that's in the pre-bids, schedule, deliverables, budget, sustainability, DI initiatives, and then just anything else we think will like affect the bid or just stuff that they need to know. It's just easier to put it in one place and just like flip through.
I really like hearing that. We don't often get that with photographers when we're asked to bid on motion jobs. Sometimes we're getting a little bit more of that, but the why did you choose that person is really helpful, because sometimes an artist might have a wide range of work. And if I'm now putting together a treatment for you, knowing what imagery or, stories or whatever you gravitated to would be really helpful for us to know.
Heather and I work with so many photographers that now, since the algorithm rewards making it move, have started directing. And so many of my photographers turned directors are asking, what do I do in order to get noticed more by agencies for live action work? Dave, is there any advice or any particular instance where you would say, let's try to tap a photographer that's really emerging in a directing space and bring them onto this? What makes them competitive? What do they need to know as they're evolving their careers?
It's a great question. I mean, it's a little bit of the chicken or the egg, because these jobs come around not very often. Like nobody wants to make the wrong decision about who they work with. So giving a chance to maybe an unproven director is a bit risky. Not to say it doesn't happen, but I think as long as the creative meets their aesthetic, I think so. Maybe it's not photo led, but it has a stills quality. I think they would be more apt to give a shot to a director, but it's something honestly that we struggle with a little bit. There's so many directors out there, and nobody wants to. You might do creators might do 2 or 3 campaigns a year, and like they don't want to make the wrong choice. So it is an uphill battle, I think. So that's not a great answer because I didn't really
No,
get any insight.
it's an
actually an
honest
honest
answer.
Yeah.
It's really helpful.
But these are conversations we are having.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we're seeing work, and whether we're challenged for, you know, for budgets or for whatever reason, we are looking at conversations like, let's look at a photographer that does motion, right? Because typically that then leans into more of the social side of things as well, because we're shooting stills, and then we're also shooting for short form motion, like a social or maybe a short form OLV. And then, we also look at conversations the other way around, where you're looking at directors who can also shoot stills. And again, it's driven because of like timing or budgets, or there's some logistical issues or this or that or whatever. So these conversations, and this is another way in which production conversations are evolving in agencies. We are looking to solve, new problems when it comes to like, okay, how do we do this?
It is usually photography led, and then with a addition of motion.
Yep.
And that's just for
Is when you will consider a photographer.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, I think.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to sort of kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
Mhm.
I think a lot of times if we do go that route, the photographer is usually the DP, or their motion work very much looks like their stills work,
Mhm.
and there's a consistency between the two.
When you're hiring a photographer to manage a live action campaign, how do you vet their production partner as well? Because so many of traditional artist management agencies, apostrophe, we've always had a production offering. We never really talked about it a lot, but now we're talking about it a lot more. Does that production partner give you confidence as well for using that photographer turn director?
I think if there's been success on the still side, it would give me confidence. Because I'd ask them, Cliff and Caroline, like, how is this production company? And they're like, oh, they're top notch. So it's a different sort of medium, but like if you trust the people you're working with, then I think that would be enough for me.
I mean, usually in the stills world, they've hired out to different production companies. Does that give you pause when the artist management company then becomes a production company?
No, it's really like down to who it is.
Do you ever direct who the producer is? Do you ever say, we
Yes.
would really love to work with this producer?
We do.
Yeah. Usually if you have a history with them and you had
Yeah.
experience or you got along with them well, I mean, specifically like the line producer on a broadcast job or
Uh-huh.
a motion job, usually they're not on staff at the production company. So if you've had a good experience with them, you like working with them, you trust them, it's never a mandate, but it's a suggestion.
It's a tight line to walk because the production company or, print company wants somebody they know and trust.
Mhm.
You want someone you know and trust. So where their, allegiances, if you will,
Yeah.
because the agency is going to push for certain things and the production company is going to push for others. Maybe one is the agency is pushing for a more expensive wardrobe, or the production company is like, yeah, let's, we're over on that line. Let's, push back. So it's a tightrope for the, to request the producer that you want. But all anybody really should care about is the best thing for the project.
Definitely. Well, and also a lot of times we get calls through either a producer or a production company. So that to us tells us that you are all developing relationships where you trust them to be the ones to help you put together your teams.
There's pros and cons to it. I think we've been doing that a bit more,
Mhm.
especially in situations where it's a really, really large film shoot when we're working under a really tight timeline and the film production company kind of takes the responsibility on for the photographer, and it makes a smoother like schedule of the day, and
Mhm.
kind of the photography ends up getting a bit more love because the production company is responsible for it. So
Yeah. I found that when you have 2 competing companies, I mean, they're just trying to deliver what they're scoped for.
Sure.
Yeah.
And would an example of that be you have a production company who's doing your broadcast spot, but then you, Droga, independently bring in a photographer maybe to shoot stills, and when they are not under the same umbrella, you find it's a bit hard or
It's harder to get the seat at the table.
to get a seat at the table.
Just sharing everything. It's,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
the biggest thing they bring up probably is insurance.
Mhm.
Like who holds the insurance, who's responsible, sharing of set time.
Yeah.
You know, like how, you know, when's your photographer supposed to, or, you know, shoot this, we're gonna need the talent here for that. So do we leave them for 20 minutes while the lighting, you know, the great,
Yeah.
what crews do you need? So there's a lot of, you know, it's gotta be, again, a symbiotic relationship where the output is what's important. You know, things on set get tight, as you
Yeah.
know, and then there, it becomes like, you know, we've got to move on. It's like, no, you don't. They've got to shoot that. That's important to us, to our clients.
Yeah. You are all the conduits for us in those situations.
Yes. Yeah. And
So thank you.
we do work really hard just to, you know, let everyone know that the output, the stills output of this job is just as important to the client as the film. Sometimes more, actually. I mean, the film is more complex, and so obviously it needs a lot of attention, but, you know, but we work hard just to make sure that the stills don't get lost.
So this has been amazing. We're kind of wrapping up here, and we'd love to just kind of have a few more last questions. The first one kind of being about the future. And if you guys had, you know, a prediction to make about the rest of the year.
It's so difficult to forecast
Yeah.
2025. I mean, you know, given everything that's going on in the world, it's actually difficult to forecast what's happening next week. But I think opportunities will come. I think they do, because, you know, we're a great agency, we do great work, and so, you know, people want to be a part of that. And I think for every opportunity that we get, regardless of how small it is, I think we just have to like make it as incredible as we possibly can. You know, I think everything that we do this year has to be exceptional.
Yeah, the at-bats aren't as much.
No, they're not. They're not. And I, you know, there's something I've always said, you know, even the little idea that hangs around in the corner that no one's paying attention to, you know, it needs as much love as everything else. And sometimes these are the opportunities that provide really unexpected things. It is unpredictable, but every opportunity that you get, just absolutely give it everything.
I like that advice.
I do think more assets will continue to be a thing. The trend now is people are doing less sort of broadcast work, big expensive things. So I think the smaller, just more deliverables for social will continue to grow. And then I'm hopeful, and this is probably where my words will change, is that people, companies, at least aren't afraid to take a stand if they don't agree with what's currently happening in the world. I think it could actually be a great benefit to their company if they did say the right thing. I don't know if that'll happen, but that's what I would like to see.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
Caroline?
My gut tells me that this year is going to be quite busy. And I think my word still stands true. I think interesting is always the way that this industry operates. It's never a dull moment.
I think there's a lot of uncertainty. I agree with what everyone's saying. I think that, to Dave's point, companies that do stand up will be rewarded, but I think there's got to be a, you know, mutual, just humanitarian respect for everybody, being sensitive to everyone. You know, I think it goes a little too far sometimes, but, you know, we can veer back and, you know, forward, and the political climate is hot, but I would like to see just, you know, continued creative and great ideas and beautiful work being done and stuff that I'm just looking at and I'm like, why didn't I do that? So I think it's uncertain right now. I hope it's busy, you know, but not, you know, too busy. But that's my outlook right now.
And this is our last question, and it doesn't necessarily have to do with the advertising industry, or maybe it does. I'll start back with you, Jeremy. If you could sit across the table from anyone and have a conversation with them, who would it be?
Oh, that's a great question.
Don't overthink it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it would probably, you know, probably in the marketing world and this and that, probably Steve Jobs is someone I would love to. I know he's no longer with us. If it was somebody alive, I just find Taika Waititi to be a humongous, like, he just seems like the right, like, kind of mentality for me. Just takes the piss out of everything and just looks at life with a big positivity. So Someone like that would probably be my guess. I also, watching what David Droga does and how he works and his management of clients and agencies, if I got a good amount of time with him, which I probably could get, I would probably take that.
Cliff, what about you?
Just picking up on what Jeremy said, I wouldn't mind an hour with David Droga. We don't see him that much. He's obviously a very busy guy. But yeah, I would love actually a perspective from him on where we are and what he thinks about things.
Barack Obama. I mean, I find him so interesting, and he could probably teach me a lot. And I would just love to hear him say whatever he wanted to say to me. I would just absorb it. So
Awesome.
My answer to this question is always Oprah. I just love her wisdom, so would love some of that.
I love that you already have an answer.
I wrote a paper about her in 3rd grade, and
Next time you have to bring that.
Well, this has been amazing and lovely and incredible. And, we've learned a lot. So we really appreciate your time.
We love to do it.
Appreciate it. It was awesome.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for joining us at the community table. Bringing this conversation to life with Kelly has been such a rewarding way to build on the original series. The more the industry evolves, the more we believe in the power of open, honest dialogue to help us all navigate what's next. We hope today's discussion left you with fresh ideas, new perspectives, or simply a sense that you're part of a larger creative community that's figuring it out together. Be sure to subscribe, share the episode, and pull up a chair next time. There's always a seat waiting for you at the table.